Hi, everyone, and welcome to my coloring corner. I am Renee, and I have a guest with me today. His name is Fred, and Fred designs and does 3D printing dioramas, and he is the creator of the one I'm going to be coloring today. So this is going to be lots of fun. Of course, ask any questions that you may have of Fred. We also have Bob with us in the chat area, and he is going to moderate for me. So if you have any questions that I miss or any questions that Fred misses, he will let us know, and we will try to get them answered for you. So how are you doing today, Fred?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm trying to keep myself quite awake at over the pond. It's almost 11:30, but yeah, I'm doing well.
Yes. Where are you currently, Fred? Like what
I'm
part
in
of
the
the world?
UK. So
So
just
the time there is pretty good.
yeah, it's okay. It's okay, and I'm quite excited to see what you're going to do with that model because my painting is rubbish, and I'm quite interested in seeing good people that are good at what they're doing painting my model. So let's see.
So what I'm going to be using to color the model is I have the UB markers, which are a nice little fine tip brush marker. And I'm also going to be using the Arteza Acrylic markers for this as well. And I was actually really good and went through and pulled all my markers and everything else that I'm going to be using beforehand, which is abnormal for me. Normally, I fly by the seat of my pants and don't have anything ready or anything. Now, the model has been coated with a rub and buff in a nice metallic finish color that my husband lovingly did for me. Now, I'm not going to do all of the pieces today because, yeah, that's going to take a lot of time. But these are all the pieces, different little pieces that are going to at some point be colored. And after they're done, they should look like this. So I'm just
That's
getting
pretty cool.
everything out here for you so you can all see the different pieces. Now, what is the diorama called so that, when people do go to your site, they will be able to find it?
I guess if they go to in Patreon, it's called Batteries Not Included, WIMP. I do have it on Cults, and it's called Fix It, which is the name of the original movie. So they can find it there.
Okay.
Um, it is mostly FDM printable. I believe that actually Bob printed those antennas in FDM.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a full FDM print, and it's quite a simple model to print, not really a hard one to print.
Now, for my colorist audience that doesn't know a lot about 3D printing, what is FDM?
So FDM basically is when you melt a bit of plastic and you just deposit it on top layer by layer. And I know some people in chat will kill me for saying making it this simple, but yeah, you just put plastic on top of each layer and you just build up a 3D model from plastic.
Okay, great. And no, to make it simple is wonderful for us because we use paper and these things, colored pencils.
Yeah,
You know, um, coloring the plastic is, um, the models is a little bit different for us. So keeping it simple is a good thing. Hi there, Llama. So glad you could make it.
Shane is wanting the technical description of FDM. I told him to go and search on Wikipedia.
That's awesome. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give a little bit of time here for everybody to join us and move things around a bit so I can concentrate on different little areas, and I'll switch over to the other camera when I start coloring. Does anybody in the chat, Bobopedia, that doesn't already know some information about Fred? Because by the looks of most of the people in the chat right now, it's most of the 3D community. So probably all know you quite well.
I would assume most of them do. Yes, there's probably, I think, a couple of people that I don't recognize, but most of them, yeah, are 3D printing community people.
Okay, so
I actually got the one you have there.
Yeah, you did
So,
such a good job on that. What did you use on the eyes?
oh, the eyes actually are not even painted.
Oh, you did it in a white gray, didn't you?
So I only use white gray because of to paint them. Depending on the model, you sometimes need to paint it darker. Sometimes you need to paint it lighter. So light gray is a really nice color that just allows you to paint lighter or darker colors onto without having a lot of problems with.
Problems with it, yeah.
Yeah. So
Thaneth does not know who you are. So if you
yes. So I make like Renee said, the dioramas and models for 3D printing. So, if the WIMP is a good example. I was actually a request from Renee that really liked the batteries not included movie, and she wanted to have a model that she could have printed, and then I looked at some references and I made it in 3D software so that it could be printed in a 3D printer. So a lot of the stuff you see in the background, that's the kind of things I do, from dioramas to cosplay props.
Right.
That's my job.
No, absolutely. Thanet, that is a valid question. If you don't know who somebody is, the validity of asking the question is there.
Yeah, and I don't assume you should know me. No, I'm not that, superstar.
Yeah, Fred says he's not a superstar, but he actually created this entire diorama for me, and that makes him a superstar to me. So, because I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, so like Clockwise, yeah, he has a Patreon. He sells models on shops also, and I don't do the awesome stuff he does, but I do models and I have a Patreon. Yeah,
You do awesome stuff.
It's different stuff. I say, like, I take my hat to him. He makes some impressive things.
He makes some impressive things.
He does. He does.
Okay, so these go in here. Just trying to make sure I color the right amount of the bottom part of his eyes white.
Oh yes, because the eyes you have are the filament brown. Okay. Yeah. Ooh, that's interesting. I was looking at the white acrylic pens the other day. They seem pretty interesting.
Yeah, this one is Arteza, and Arteza is a fantastic company. Not quite sure where they're out of, but I order from the US. When I order, it's from the US site. So, and it's spelled Arteza.
Okay, that's interesting.
And I've used this pen before, but every once in a while you got to get it going and make sure that the ink's coming down, the paint's coming down. Just like it with any other pen. But the unfortunate thing with paint pens is getting them going sometimes is messy.
So yeah, Wax. So they're trying to explain what I do. Waxer does mini figurines, and I started, and I still do dioramas that allow people to give kind of an ambience to the mini figurines he makes. And I guess it's more about the concept of the figurines, having uh, printing something in 3D, which is a figurine or a model, and then giving it a little bit more, of an ambience to it. So that's what I do. And then like someone was saying, I do love painting the models and dioramas. I don't paint them in pen because I would be rubbish at it. I'm still rubbish at painting it with a brush, but try my best.
Well, the only thing with painting it with anything really is keeping your fingers out of the way.
I end up paint, especially when using an airbrush. I get paint all over my hands.
The one thing I do like about using things such as the paint pens that I'm using is it dries quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So getting that layer down and then putting another layer on top is not a slow process. You don't have to set it aside and let it dry. You can, by the time I'm finished this, I can dry. The other side will be dry, so I can move back over there and put another layer.
Oh, okay.
When you start getting heavier in the layers, it's best to leave it sit for a few minutes to dry because it will wet the lower layers and it'll just wipe it off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I ended up getting used to actually drilling every part, and then putting a bit of a skewer, and I made this structure that allows me to just hold parts in skewers and just let them dry because it takes still a couple of minutes for the paint, especially on a brush, to dry off.
Yeah. So I'm going to switch you over to the other camera so you can see better what I'm doing.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm just basically filling in the lines.
So how many coats do you do on those when you're painting, like especially that white?
Well, with this one, because it's brown, I would put a few coats on until it's the white that I want it to be. Because the brown's going to show through until I get a good couple of coats on it. The diorama, the Easter diorama you did,
Mm-hmm.
I did his chest plate in white, like the center of the bunny there.
Yeah.
And it took a couple of coats because it was already a gray-white color.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem when people are painting with brushes or airbrushes is the giving it enough coats to make it a solid color paint. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, even when I finish some models and look back and I say, I should have given it another coat.
Yeah. So this is what happens if you don't give it enough time and you touch it.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to put that down and let it dry for a little bit. I'll do the other one.
But yeah, it's really hard, and like there are colors that are harder to paint than others. It's quite interesting to see, like for example, yellows. My God, it's a pain to get a yellow to stick properly.
Yeah, I didn't pull any yellows. I pulled some on the gold, and I pulled the other gold from the other side.
I just tried to post for the Twitter link, and it said removed any web addresses and try again.
Yeah, you don't have.
Yeah, that's fine. At night, Bob.
But
Nightbot. Yeah,
Bob
did it.
Bob can do it.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, what was it the other day? I was trying to paint some colors, and my God, they weren't sticking at all. I had, and I usually give it a base coat, a primer, and a base coat just to ensure that everything sticks properly. But it's really hard, and like especially yellows. I've started using some base coats of different colors to see what works. I guess with markers a little bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's a white, um, one of the things that I might suggest to you is using an alcohol-based marker
Yeah, I'll try. I'll have to try
because
that
it
because
it actually, soaks right into the filament and actually stains it.
okay, I'll have to try that because a lot of the times it really kind of is difficult. I
Yeah,
even got
depending.
some white primer, but it doesn't work.
Geeky Faye has a video that she where she colors one of her prints with alcohol markers, and it's pretty good.
Oh, okay. I'll have to see that also.
I will put a link for that in. I think Bob, can you look that up on Geeky Faye's YouTube?
Because like for painting, even white primer sometimes with an airbrush. Oh my God, it's a pain to get it to work.
Yeah,
Uh, it depends on the PLA or the plastic they use to print.
yeah.
But some plastics are really you can't stick anything to it. Some other brands are nicer and you can actually do well.
And normally, what I do after I finish a print, coloring, like with the well, the one I have done is the diorama of the Easter diorama. Is I took it outside and I sprayed it with a workable fixative to
Hmm.
solidify the paint.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
I use a workable fixative on my colorings,
Hmm.
especially when I use pan pastels and stuff like that, dry pastel. I
Yeah,
use
yeah,
I
yeah,
use it for my backgrounds, and in
yeah,
order to keep it on the background, um, when I put it away or if I show it off or anything like that, I spray it so that the background is solidified in place.
yeah. I was actually thinking the other day because I use something called pigments.
Yep,
So and basically, I'm almost certain they're kind of just basically pastel crayons that have been just dusted and
yep,
they're put in a bottle. But they some of the brands also provide binders for it, so that you can actually just mix it up and then it just solidifies them. I do actually, and even in this model, I use the pigments for the base
yeah,
because the dirt on the front of the base, I want it to be kind of a mix of colors and kind of quite
right.
blended. So I've used the pigment. I think it would work well with pastel.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, pastels basically is just a chalk with a lot of
yeah,
pigment in it. So,
exactly. I did another diorama not long ago. I did a Rambo First Blood diorama,
hmm,
and I had some bits of old timber that at the entrance of a mine would be very dark. So I've used some black pigment, and it came out brilliantly because it just looked dark and dusty and old,
yeah.
and it was pretty cool. I haven't actually fixed the pigments, but basically the stuff hangs on the wall and I don't touch them, so I don't think it would be a problem. But it's quite cool.
Yeah, when you do those, and if you want to move them around or whatnot, or use them for show,
Hmm.
just um, go to Amazon or wherever and see if you can get a Krylon fixative.
Okay.
Krylon is the brand name.
Yeah, and is it kind of matte or is it?
Yeah, Yeah, you can get a matte fixative. That's the workable fixative. It's usually pretty matte, but you can also get a shiny one too.
Okay. Yeah, because a
You
lot of
you
the
can get a
stuff.
gloss one.
Okay, I'll have a look on Amazon. Uh, Amazon. Yeah, there is. Boom. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, I'll add it to the. I guess this comes from America or US because it's pretty expensive here in the UK. Well, let's add one to the basket. I always like to try new stuff. I guess it's what I've always said about dioramas. You want to try new techniques, new products, and just experiment with them.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I had so much fun with that. The WIMP one, the base to me was a challenge, but then doing the rub and buff,
Yeah.
because every time I do rub and buff, I look at it and said, "Oh, this is not what I was looking for." So I was thinking, "Oh, am I going to ruin the model or not?" But it actually came out okay-ish.
Yeah, and with these, like you can see that it's a paint tip type of
Yeah.
tip.
So you have way more control with those
Yeah, than
than
with
I
the other.
have with the rub and buff.
Yeah,
So, I had parts here where I just pressed too much or pressed too little, and I look at it and say, yeah, there's a smudge there, and there's nothing you can do about it.
and I should have because I'm always forgetting at least one thing. I'm going to be right back. I need a piece of paper towel.
Okay.
I will be right back.
Is there any advantage of using paint markers for those? Uh, I don't know.
I have found actually Bob brought me some, so thank you, honey. I have found that using a marker, especially if it's a large piece, the paint markers have a little bit more control.
Yeah, I would agree with you because I've tried using edge detailing with markers, and a brush is something that it's not as natural to us. With a marker, you just write it and you write and
Yeah.
you use it. A brush has a technique to it, and it's really hard. I can't master it at all.
And nowadays, especially in the alcohol markers, you can get a marker with a good brush tip,
Hmm.
which gives you the ability to use the fine end as well as the thicker end for coloring. So, if you do choose to go with an alcohol marker, you can get a brush tipped, but it's still more control than a paint brush, from
Yeah,
what I have learned.
I probably wouldn't be able to write any sentence with a brush, and I know because I've used markers for some dioramas that I can actually do it with a marker.
Yeah,
I guess it probably works well, and maybe actually I think it's something that Renee is forcing me to do is try, because it could actually work really well. And I know of occasions, and a good example is imagine you have a prop weapon from a movie that you're making, yeah, for cosplay, and when the metal on the edges you want highlighted
hmm
with a marker, it's really simple to do. Another example is if you watch a game like Borderlands that has those edges in black, those you do with a marker.
yeah.
I think it was Graphit. He did a big Borderlands weapon. It was insane because he used a marker to highlight the edges, and it was brilliant. So like any technique or any tool, there's a place for them,
Yeah.
and I do believe that markers have probably been very little use for a lot of stuff, especially because everyone looks at miniature painting. But they might actually be a good option for a lot of things.
Mhm.
I'm going to
So,
try and order a couple.
so this is basically what I'm doing is I'm just putting it on letting it soak in a little bit into the rub and buff, and then just taking off the shine.
And that blends perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And that one's done. So, and I'll do the same thing with this. I'll let this soak in different patches into that wax rub and buff. And if it was directly on the filament, it would soak into the filament. However, the one thing I like about the rub and buff is it gives me a little bit of time to smudge it, to wash it out.
Interesting. And do you think it's because of the wax? What
Yeah.
if it was a? Have you ever tried painting it on top of a primer, like acrylic primer or something like that?
I have not. I would suspect the primer would probably absorb it a little bit quicker than the wax.
That's kind of interesting. Now I'm very interested in trying that to see how it works. Because there's a lot of things you could do with it.
Were you able to find these metallic?
I looked on Amazon. There were a couple of them available. I need to actually put a little bit of effort to try and get a couple of them. I might actually try the metallics because I have a. So next month I'm doing only dioramas of movie places, but the months after I'm doing weapons, so cosplay weapons, and there's a lot of metallic stuff there.
Yeah.
So I might actually try and do that with the metallic colors.
Yeah, the UB colors comes in 5 different colors: the gold, silver, red, which is a pinky red, a purple, and a blue. So it's
So yeah, they are 3D printed parts that were printed in brown, I believe, and then rubbed in buff, and now she's doing the markers on top of it.
Yep.
And it does work, and I think it's actually could. I've seen someone doing a part where they blended markers on top of each other.
Yep.
And it was really cool.
Yeah, I'm going to go in after I'm done with the gold areas. I'm going to go in with a bit of blue and a bit of silver as well.
Yeah, and I'll give it a very blended and an old look and feel.
Yeah.
I need to look into the metallics, but I'll probably use it. It could be really cool for doing some effects.
So that's the start of it. That's just the gold areas, and if it's too dark, then I just too bright, then I just take the paper towel, wipe it down a little bit, and it knocks it back a little bit.
And the amount of control you have with it is really good. And the fact that it's dried.
I can go like this. I can literally follow the line of the print.
Yeah. For the majority of us, actually following a line with a brush is just not something that's going to happen.
But you don't have to. You don't have to do that with this one, but with this marker, it's just so tiny. The tip is so tiny that you can just do really, really fine things, or you can use the whole tip and do really wide things. Doesn't take me all long to fill in that whole space.
It's pretty cool. Even when it's dry, it does blend still quite well. And,
oh yeah. Hi, Viking. So I'm going to take a bit of this blue just to show how, and silver, just to show how well they'll blend together, as well as layer on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the silver. So it just lays right on top. And when you rub it, it blends
Oh,
right
that's
in.
pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I'm imagining doing that with, when you get like those metal gradients from like silver to bluish and purple. And, oh,
Well,
that's just awesome.
so there's the blue, and then we'll take the gold and we'll go right into it.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was saying.
And the silver right into it. And then we'll just give it a rub. And it just goes right into it.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, the black areas are the wax rub and buff.
Yeah. Which actually ended up being quite interesting because usually the rub and buff, what you tend to do is the opposite. You have a black base or a darker base. Well, you could actually do it with like I've seen someone do it with teal and silver, where the silver is a rub and buff. So the rub and buff usually stays on the edges and not on the recesses. Because if you just wiping it, across the surface, you don't touch the recesses. It's quite interesting. But in this case, it actually came out really nice, where there's some of the recesses are really dark, and then some of the surfaces are really light. So I quite like it.
And another thing that you can do, if you do get a set of alcohol markers, is every set of alcohol markers comes with a blending brush, a blending marker.
Oh, okay.
Which is just nothing but rubbing alcohol.
Yeah.
So if something's too dark, blend it off.
Nice.
Like this part here doesn't seem to want to blend too well, so you just take it off. And it gives it.
I like how it looks kind of really grunged and messed up.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And that's pretty much the look that I'm looking for, because WIMP was pretty beat up.
Yeah.
Freddie's going to spend a lot. No, I'm not going to make him buy horribly expensive things.
Oh no, I have Copic markers. Me and my daughter, we have a drawer full of markers and stuff like that. I don't have those ones. You're using the metallic ones, so I do actually want to get some.
Yeah,
and again,
and these ones, like I said, are UBI, the YOOBI. They're fairly inexpensive here in the States. I don't know about there, but here in the States, they're really really inexpensive. So
yeah. I think it's always like, especially, I'm always trying to find new tricks. Like even this week, I was painting some buildings, and I used some crackling paint as a base.
Oh yeah.
For the buildings, and it's really fine details, but it looks so cool. So I'm this Friday I'm going to paint the buildings up, and I hope I don't mess up the details. But it's always trying new things, and that's what it's interesting to do with, like, even markers. I've never used markers on minis or dioramas, so I really want to try that.
Yeah, and it works really well. Do you have the Copic Classics, or do you have the Copic
Let
Sketch?
me get it. Let me get if I find it, because Matilda's always stealing them. But these are probably what, 20 years old?
So it'd be
Copic?
the classics, yeah.
Yeah. Copic
Um,
Sketch.
oh, it's the sketches. Okay, so they're I didn't think sketches were that old.
Well, considering that I've not been in uni for more than 20 years. Yeah.
Wow. So they're the brush marker then.
They have
Should
the
have a brush on one side, chisel on the other.
chisel
What's
on one side,
and the
on the
brush on the other. Yeah. Those will work really, really well.
So, but I think these are pretty beat up ones. I'll have to probably refill them.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you can just refill those and replace the nibs. You're all good.
Yeah, I have not as many as Geeky Fight, but a substantial amount of them. So I was looking the other day. She posted a picture of a structure she printed to store her markers, and when I was talking with them on the live chats, she was showing a massive collection. I was telling my daughter about it, and it just reminded me of exactly the same structure I have for all my paints.
Yeah, it's a honeycomb structure, and
Exactly.
I blew her collection out of the water.
I was yesterday I was organizing my workbench, and because I'm not the brightest of them all, I decided to put some screws on the workbench while the paints were still on the hex rack,
Oh dear.
and they all came down. So I had to reorganize and organize them all in colors, and I was like, oh my god, this is going to be a pain.
Yeah,
It's too many colors.
I actually did a review with Geeky Phase marker holder thingy.
Oh, but I seen what Bob's been printing for you.
Yeah. Well,
That looks...
he printed me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them so far, and it hasn't even given me enough marker holders to hold one set. I have over 1,000 markers.
No, God help me. If I had 1,000 bottles of paint, I would probably commit suicide. What I do have is, and this is, I think, important for people that are, those that are watching. You don't need to go in
that
and
many. Yeah.
no. And like I started probably with 4 or 5 colors, and as I needed to paint models, I got more colors, and then every month, and some of you that know me from day-to-day chats, I buy colors every month, and I buy pigments and other things that help me make the dioramas. And as you go on and you build it, I've been printing hexes for the workbench every month. Like last month I printed 20 hexes so I could fit the paints on the wall. And I'm always organizing it and then ordering more paints and then printing more hexes, and it just allows you to paint stuff.
Yeah.
I think at this moment I could actually probably paint almost everything, and I don't even have more than 100 and something colors and pigments and metallics.
Yeah, it doesn't take a whole lot, and
No.
My collection gradually grew over the past year and a half because of the fact that people would buy me different markers, and I'm not very fond of the fine nib chisel markers. I prefer the brush markers.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to find a comparable, inexpensive set of brush markers, because the Copics are very expensive.
Yeah, they are.
I actually found a very comparable, inexpensive brush marker. This one, as well as the Chroma, are a very nice brush marker. and the chromas can be refilled as well.
Oh, okay.
They're more expensive. They're cheaper than the Copics, but they're more expensive than the Cali Arts.
Yeah. Yeah, I
But
guess like for us, when painting with acrylic paints, it's a little bit different. Like
well,
because
this is the acrylic paint pen.
yeah,
So this works the same way. It's just a wider coverage
mm-hmm,
than the brush. And it's more of a yellow. Oh, I'm not in the camera. Somebody just came and showed me that I'm not in the camera. So, because my eyesight's not all that great, I have a tendency to bring it closer to me. And I took it right out of the camera. Sorry. So, it's a brighter yellow
yeah,
than the brush.
that's one. Okay.
But I just do the same thing as I was doing with the brush marker.
Mm-hmm.
Fill it in. If I want it to keep this yellow, then I just leave it and let it dry.
Yeah.
If I want to just leave a touch of it, just wipe it off, it fills in between the layer lines and stays there.
Now that reminds me of when you use a brush and you blend in colors while they're still wet.
Mm-hmm.
But that is even better and nicer because you can actually just smash it off and it still keeps a base color. It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Producer Bob. I like that. But yeah, I guess like the thing with the markers and like I've been buying the colors, but I can buy the colors and actually use them with the airbrush. I can use them with the brush. And
That's
I
right.
can buy expensive brushes or cheap brushes. I have hundreds of brushes that I bought in eBay and Alibaba, and I bought some expensive ones.
Yeah.
And then you can try different things, but you can still keep the paints. There's a much smaller selection of good acrylic paints, I guess, compared to markers.
Have you seen the airbrush, Copic airbrush?
I've seen that. Yes, I've seen that the other day. Someone was mentioning it, and I had a look. That was insane.
Yeah, so you can actually take your Copic marker and your Copic marker ink and airbrush with it. It's really kind of cool.
It is pretty awesome. I don't know. I've been airbrushing for a year now, and I'm really bad at it. I don't do details. So what I love the airbrush is I have like the WIMP, and I want to paint it. I want to prime it black so I can actually then do the rub and buff. Cool. Big surface, airbrush, let's go. Fine. It's not like I've some of people that I follow, they just do these tiny lines or gradients in airbrush, and I go like, what? No way. And I started with the wrong way around, and I've read so many people saying don't buy an expensive airbrush or a compressor, start cheap and you learn. And I went and bought a airbrush kit that was expensive, and I basically broke the airbrush, and then
oh no,
the compressor was crap. So I ended up actually doing what Grumpy suggested, and I got a 20 pounds airbrush that I love, because when it's done, and you throw it in a bin and you buy another one until you learn and you're good at it, which I'm still far from being, but I love it. And I bought a proper compressor.
Yeah, and that's basically it. Is as long as you're doing something that you enjoy doing, then spend the money on it. If
Oh
it's
yeah,
if
definitely.
you find that you start off really, really inexpensive, and if you find that it's something you like to do, and you have fun with it, and it's relaxing, then then start spending the more, buying the more expensive
Definitely.
products.
I have probably two brushes that cost me what, £20 for those two brushes, and I have 60 brushes that probably cost me what, £20 in total.
Wow.
And I just basically use them, and if they're too old or too dirty, I'll just throw them in the bin because they're not worth the cost.
Right.
But the reality is, you can start cheap and just get into it. I think a lot of people, especially, like Monkey was saying, why paint it, just print it. But there are things you can't do with printing, even in multicolors, you can do with painting.
Right.
And
Right.
it is a hard thing to get really good at, but in my experience, it's fun to actually paint it, even if it is not great, and actually make it look good with a minimum amount of effort.
Right.
Um, and it's always something to try, I guess. Um, and I've learned a lot in the last 2 years painting dioramas and miniatures, especially painting dioramas, which is a little bit more kind of a scenery where you have not only to paint it, and then you can add uh, grass and gravel and static grass and lights and mud and water.
Right. You also start learning on, one of the things that I found when I really got into coloring and started learning more and more and more about the colors is when you go outside, you start seeing different colors everywhere. Like
Yeah.
you look up at a tree and you see like 10 different greens and 2 different browns and, a gray, a beige, different things like that. It's really kind of cool.
Oh, the other day I was ordering some gray colors, and I realized I ended up ordering like 5 or 6 different gray colors. And yesterday when I was reorganizing the paints, I have 20 browns.
Yeah.
You know, and the more you do it, the more you realize there's gradients and colors you use more, and things you tend to paint more, and you want that variance and that difference.
Right.
So it's pretty cool.
Right. So I've done that whole socket in just the silver.
I think that'll cool because it's a more covered area, so it's less damaged.
Yeah. Well, it's just where his little arms go in.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Ah, it's a good thing it's just the rubbing buff on top now. But yeah, so that's basically all I do is I just go over little areas. If I find it's too bright, then I rub it off and just leave a hint of the color there.
I think we need to start doing more kind of complex dioramas and see how that goes, because that would be a challenge. I'm actually just thinking about one that someone painted this week, which was from a game, World of Warcraft,
Mm-hmm.
and Photosmint made the model, which is the Leoric, which is um, an awesome model, and then I made a throne for it,
Oh yeah.
and I've seen 2 people painting it, and it was stunning. But I would love to see a marker version of it. So, yeah, I think that's one for Bob to print. And he has a resin printer, so actually you can actually print the model in resin. It'll come out really nice, and then see how that goes.
Yeah. So I haven't seen any of my coloring girls in here. I think they're all being quiet. So that or else I've just got a 3D printer
Oh
community
yeah,
visiting today.
I think they looked at at the model, and then saw my face and then just gave up.
No.
I'm just saying.
All right, so these eyeballs are drier now, so I'll go over them again. We are reaching an hour here, and it is very late for Fred, so we will probably be calling it soon so that he could actually get some sleep.
Oh no, I'm fine. I'm fine. It's
Okay.
good. No,
Are you all right?
I might need a bio break in a bit, but I'm fine. Yeah, don't worry about it. As I said, it's not a problem. I went to. I was up yesterday, much later than this. It was what one
Well,
thirty.
yeah, I know. I talked to you at like 4:30, 5 o'clock my time, and you were
Yeah,
still wide awake.
yeah, I was indeed. It was painful to get up in the morning today to drop my daughter at school, but yeah,
Well,
it's fine. I don't don't get too worried about it. It's something I
oh,
like doing. So
well, thank you, Fred. No, I'm not overly worried about it. I try to run my streams between an hour and a half. So we will hang out for a while here, and if any of the girls show up, they'll probably have some questions for you.
cool. There was someone DJ's colorful escape.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's Devisa. Sorry, Devisa, I didn't see you there, honey. She is my admin, one of my admins on my Facebook group.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So I actually nowadays we've done it much less, but in the past we would do a lot of streams quite late in the evening. So I guess now much less, but I'm still okay with it.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, someone.
Are people? So how was work today, Dee? Yeah, Fred's good for about another 90 minutes.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just trying to answer someone.
Oh, no, absolutely.
I tweeted. I was trying to push a link to the YouTube, and someone was asking me about it.
Cool. So these
Yeah,
are not quite dry enough to put a complete new layer on because it's starting to lift some of it up. So I've got to let them dry a little bit longer.
yeah. That's the thing is, white is always difficult to paint.
White is very
Oh my god!
difficult.
I did buy a white primer, and I when I buy primer because I use a lot of black primer, I buy them in 200 milliliters bottles,
Uh-huh.
and the white is still there. I haven't touched it because I can't paint it. Even the primer just doesn't stick well.
It really doesn't stick well when you throw it across the room either. And then try to pick it up.
I think it would probably using some gray just to kind of fade the eyes.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I'm going to put another layer of white on it, and then I'm going to actually take a proper acrylic paint
yeah,
and go over it
okay,
just to fill in the because there's a lot of layer lines there, and I
yeah,
want it to be a solid color. I don't want the layer lines to show in the eyes. On the body itself, I want the layer lines to show like they are here.
yeah. But that makes sense. I was very lazy because when I realized that didn't need to paint the eyes, I went like, yes.
I don't have to
That's
paint the eyes.
because I was like, okay, let me paint all of the rub and buff, and then after painting it, I looked at the eyes and said, "Oh, that's just perfect." Okay,
Yeah,
so
because they quite literally glow.
yeah, it's like just came out really nice in terms of the eyes because it's a very light gray.
Yeah.
Again, I think it just worked fine.
And comparative to the rest of the print, it just seems to really glow. Like the eyes
Yeah,
seem to really glow,
I
which is
actually
really cool.
took him off the base because the base I did dry brushing on it.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to do more dry brushing, so I actually got a proper dry brushing brushes this week. It's like 20 pounds each brush, but they're like insane, and the
Yeah.
amount of detail you can get out of them. and then the brown is just the pigment on top of the dry brushing.
Dry brush, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the tiles, the way you've got the tiles there.
Yeah, so basically it's just start with a dark color, and then just I've actually used in the past and they work quite well. They're not as good, but makeup, those big chunky makeup brushes,
Yeah,
so the big ones,
yeah,
that's exactly what you need. So a bit of acrylic paint on
like
the
these.
brush. Show me. Yeah, that works fine. So
I use makeup brushes for my pigments for
yeah,
my
exactly,
for
exactly.
my pen pastels.
Exactly. So with a brush like that, just a bit of acrylic paint, and then what you do is you get a paper towel and you take most of the paint out of the brush,
Mm-hmm.
so that when you rub it on your hand, on like when you do it like this, there's almost
Yeah,
no paint in it. Yeah.
right.
And when you brush on top of the darker layer, it just picks up on those edges and it
Mm-hmm.
highlights the edges just perfectly. And again, you can do it with a cheap brush. It doesn't need to be an expensive one. I did end up
Oh no.
trying. I did try a set of brushes called Artist Opus,
Mm-hmm.
and they're quite expensive. And
Yeah.
actually, I bought one, and the kit is £54 for the
Wow.
kit. But they're mind blowing, like really good.
Yeah, I bought an entire set of just makeup brushes like the one I showed you. It has a
Yeah,
really big one all the way down to minuscule. Let's see if I can find it. It's here somewhere. This one here, just a minuscule edge brush, so it quite literally will fit.
and for the pigments, that's awesome because with the pigments, the amount of blending you can do with pigments is just awesome. I love it.
Yeah, and they work so nicely for doing backgrounds with my pastels
Mm-hmm.
because you don't have to do um, really uh, large areas with a pencil. It's really difficult.
Yeah, I actually was thinking the other day because when I was in uni, I had all of the Copic markers, and I also have 2 boxes of pastel crayons in there
Uh-huh.
in a box that I've not used in 20 years.
Right.
But I was thinking if I actually use them and just grind them to use on dioramas, because I've seen some people do some really interesting stuff, especially with the texture pastes. So
Mhm.
there's a couple of when you try to simulate sand or
Oh yeah.
mud, I use these pastes that come with texture. So you just paint them on top of a surface, and it just gives that texture up. But then on top of that, you can use the pigments to give them gradients and colors, and they're pretty cool.
Well, that'd be really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, let's see if I've done.
Wonder if that probably wouldn't work well on. Well, it would
Mm.
work well on paper, but it wouldn't work well in taking like showing the picture.
No, yeah. Let me see if I have a base here just to show off some. Yeah. So I always love trying these things. So this base. So I modeled this base in 3D, but then I printed it. But that send the texture that actually is a paste. And then what I did use was Mod Podge on top to glue
Yeah.
the gravel.
Oh yeah.
So it kind of gives it a more natural effect.
Absolutely.
I wish I had better lighting, but it's not ideal. But yeah, it looks.
It looks really cool. It looks like dirt.
Yeah. And then, just some air spray and some paints and some pigments, and it works fine.
Now, one of the things that a lot of people use, and I have never used, but I've heard it works really well for um, sealing the pastel in when you do it on paper. I don't know about on plastic, but on paper, a lot of people say to use an aerosol hairspray too.
I've seen people use airspray when they do soils
Yeah.
and stuff like that, just to get everything to stick and hold. Uh, when you're using, like I use Mod Podge to stick everything to the base,
Yeah.
and then there are still some bits that don't stick. I've tried using air sprayer with Mod Podge and water.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people use air sprayer because it holds stuff.
Okay.
I was actually going to show. I'm not sure. Can you see the? So this is a
Here, let me
model I
make you
made.
big. Let me make you big. There you go.
Okay, so you can see that rust there.
Yeah.
That's all pigment. That's all made with pigments.
Very
So
cool.
basically pastel stuff, and even the dirt on the sides. That's mostly done with pigments. And that's just why I'm saying, when people are painting these things, and like me, they're not great at painting, it really doesn't matter if you can use pigments and washes to give it a washed up look. You can actually make it look
Pretty
okay.
cool.
Yeah. So, there's a couple of techniques you can use to make things look much nicer.
Yeah.
It's just a bit of effort.
Exactly, and that's what it is you can just play with it. And that's, what I did with the other diorama is I just played with it until I found what was going to work on it.
Yeah. And that is the only way, is trying and experimenting. Like even some time ago, I was experimenting with metallic reds and metallic blues, and seeing how much different it is when you paint a blue or a transparent blue on top of a gold or silver that
Mm-hmm.
has been painted on top of a black primer.
Right.
So, for example, if I'm painting anything metallic, anything, whatever it is, I always prime it black. And
Right.
then if, for example, if it's a metallic red, I will then paint gold on top of the black,
Right.
and then I'll paint it red. And the difference is just mind blowing, because the red will become really metallic with the gold below it.
Right.
Same as with blue, I'll paint it black prime, metallic silver, and then I'll paint it blue on top. And the effects are just mind blowing. It's just insane. And these things you either learn from watching other people doing, or you experiment and you learn what works for you.
Yeah. And that's exactly the same thing with coloring and any art form, basically. And I've just, become a nail technician as well.
Yeah, you see, that's
Giving myself a nail job here. But it's the same thing, is, you learn by watching, and, in order to be able to paint or color and everything else, the only way I've been able to do any of that is by watching YouTube videos of other colorists. So,
yeah, and
and
experimenting with
and
it.
experimenting, yeah, exactly, and trying things out and trying to figure out, okay, how did you do that?
Yeah, because otherwise it just you need to
Otherwise,
try, and even different color combinations work. Some people prefer, like for example, painting skin colors.
yeah,
Some people prefer some color combinations, some prefer others, some work better with whatever combination. So it's a little bit like I still have a post-it with a combination that I've someone posted on Twitter that I really liked, and I still use it nowadays. I do know the combination by heart, but I still use that exact same combination just for the fact that it works so well.
Yeah, and we have the same thing in the coloring, colored pencil world and the marker world. Is there's certain combinations that work out pretty much the best every time for different brands of pencils.
Mm-hmm.
So, for the combination you're going to use for Faber-Castells, for example, isn't the same combination you're going to use for Prismas, but it's pretty close. And if you have the same kind of pencil blend, like there's oil-based pencil blends and wax-based pencil blends. If you take a look at the names on the Faber-Castells, which is an oil base, any of your oil-based pencils are going to have the same pigmentation, just a little bit less or a little bit more depending upon the pencil. And you just pretty much follow that same formula, basically, and go from there, and then experiment with it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I think it's what I love about, and I guess it goes back to what a lot of people do with 3D printing and others. Just experiment and don't be afraid to try and see how things go. It's not like if the outcome isn't ideal, either you just paint it, prime it again and repaint it, or you
Yeah.
reprint it, or you just start from scratch.
But another thing that a lot of people also is their worst critics. You may absolutely hate something, but to somebody else, it's absolutely beautiful. So, don't be overly critical of yourself either.
No, yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. Like I know people that paint like crazy and are really good at paintings. I'm not, but then again, I
You,
don't mind doing it, and I enjoy doing it. So I
yeah,
actually, when I look at it, it looks good, and it's fine. It's fine for my standards. It's probably not fine for, a Leonardo da Vinci or some other artist, but it's good enough for me, and that's what matters. If I
exactly,
could feel happy about it and saying, well, I've learned something or made some progress with it, I'm fine.
exactly. And that's the biggest thing a lot of artists, a lot of colorists, and a lot of artists have problems with, is remembering the fact that you are your worst enemy. You are your worst critic. You want perfection, and if you don't feel you've reached perfection, then you're not satisfied with it. And sometimes you have reached perfection, but you don't see it.
Yeah. Well, I know that I've reached perfection, but at least I'm a happy bunny, as I usually say.
Well, yeah, exactly. you know,
Renee, can I do a bio break while you
absolutely,
paint? I'll
absolutely.
be online, but away from the screen for a little bit.
All right. So I'm just gonna, you know, thanks, Shane.
What is Shane saying?
He says, "Preach, sister, preach."
Yeah.
I don't preach.
Is Bob on the mic, or is he mute? Not even on the mic.
No, he's on his mic. He's just not talking.
He's shy.
We let the important people talk.
So, in other words, Fred.
Oh, that's not the way this works at all. Shane's right. We are definitely our own worst critics and enemies. Maybe switch to the wider camera, get a better view as to what's going on.
Yeah, it's just the wider camera puts it further away.
Yeah.
It doesn't give it a really good view of what's being done color-wise. It shows you what I'm doing with the rag and making a mess over here, but hey, Raven, how you doing? See.
Hmm.
So
But we get a better view of the overall effect this way.
Do you? Okay. So it's basically, you're just seeing more of my mess, though.
Well, that's not a mess if it's still in progress. Those are just your active tools.
Oh, that gives a nice overview of the whole model.
Yeah, that's what Bob was saying.
Bob, the voice of reason.
Yeah, exactly. I was just trying to cover up more of my mess, but he says that it looks better this way. There is somebody at our door. It's probably just a delivery, but
delivery guy. Yeah.
But I like the way that the blue gives it a good tone.
It looks really good. That's the kind of stuff that with acrylic paints, it's really hard to do on a brush. And with the markers, I'm seeing them more and more. You can get those reflection and different colors that I find really good.
Yeah.
I need to try that with some metallic props. So I think that's going to be my next project. It does look like a proper workbench and
Yeah,
shop.
yeah. My bench is always a mess.
I have a cutting mat that I use to cover the workbench where I paint, and after a couple of months, it was covered in different paints and stuff. So I actually bought some brown paper just to cover it up. And now basically every other week I have to cover it up because I'm just not used to it looking good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. We end up like having a mess when we're painting and
Yeah.
making stuff.
Yeah. Usually I have colored pencils everywhere.
Yeah.
So normally I don't. I try not to show too much of the widescreen unless I'm doing like a flip through of a coloring book or something, because I have pencils everywhere. It's just a big old mess.
I don't know how they do it, but sometimes I watch these people do like painting tutorials or showing, they're painting a model and it's very organized. And I go like, I can't do that. Like where they have a brush and that brush is always clean. And I look at my workbench and there's like 20 brushes in the cup, all dirty. The other day I spent an hour and a half cleaning brushes because I left them for like a week or so.
You know what it is? They have an assistant that replaces the brush.
Yeah, I've seen some people that I know of that started doing dioramas by themselves, and that they now have assistants that are doing the videos. That they're the ones painting and stuff. And I was thinking, okay, I tried to convince my daughters to help me out, but no, that didn't work.
That didn't work.
No, I even tried to convince my wife to go help me paint stuff, and that didn't work.
No.
But well, I don't mind it. Each one with their own hobbies, I guess.
Exactly. And when the daughter that likes to use your markers runs off with them, tell her that you can use those on dioramas now. So here's a diorama. Go play.
She does a lot of painting and fashion drawings and stuff like that. I actually bought her a new box of markers, and even my father, when he last Christmas, he bought her this box
Mm-hmm.
Spectra. I don't know if they're any good,
Spectre Noir. Yep.
but he said, "Oh, what does she like?" And I said, "She likes painting." So we went off and we bought her some more markers, and I bought her a big box and bought some books for her to draw on. Um, but yeah, I don't. I think she tried painting a couple of 3D models and quickly gave up on that. Uh, don't know. It really. I've seen some people that are just painting minis. They're insane at painting
Oh yeah.
miniatures.
Who is that one lady that is always on stream with you guys painting? I can't remember her name.
Hmm, Tracy.
Tracy. Yeah.
Yeah,
She does beautiful work on them.
yeah, she did. One of the most impressive things to me was when I did that Easter Bunny diorama.
Yeah.
She did a version with graffitis on the walls.
Oh yeah.
And then she did a waxer graffiti and my graffiti on the walls, and it was like I can't do that at all. I think she actually used markers for that. I can't remember, but it was really insane. And she does some great work. And
Yeah.
like I think was it? Yeah, well, Lama was talking about Grumpy. Like again, someone else that I love seeing his paint work because it's just
Yeah.
insane. And he started using oil paints, which is a technique that he showed me on a YouTube video. So basically, you paint models with acrylic paints,
Right.
and then you use oil paints on top, the same way you use washes.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my god, it's insane. The quality is just insane. The only problem is because they're oil paints, they take ages to dry up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oil paint does take a long time to dry.
yeah, but it's pretty cool. I still prefer washes because they're easier and they dry in no time. But
Yeah.
you can do some really impressive stuff. What was it? I did some time ago. Someone published a Jack from Nightmare Before Christmas, and I used a couple of dry brushing stuff, and he did a version with oil painting, and his version was like insane.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. But then again, there's tons of different techniques, and I guess it's how much you explore trying these techniques.
Exactly. And that's one of those things is you have to try. You know.
Yeah, and like what you're doing with the markers on a 3D printed model, like that's just it looks so good. And I actually seen very few people using markers on 3D printed models, and it's such a good example of how you can actually do something really cool
Yeah.
using different techniques.
Using different mediums.
Exactly. And there's no right or wrong.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like Shin is saying, he's amazed at how well it's coming out. Like, like I painted mine in rub and buff because I felt like, yeah, that's the best I can do. Because when I looked at the original model and had all those colors and different shades of blues and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and you look at the one you're painting, and it's so much nicer.
Well, thank you.
It's true,
But there's his base color. I'm going to put a little bit more down here once I get things attached. And I'm going to do his ports in the back silver
Mm-hmm.
and a bit of red.
Yeah, and actually Shane is right, because this is a thing that might actually be an easier path into painting stuff.
Yeah.
Because, acrylic paints and airbrushes are messy. But I would love to see more people actually trying markers on.
Yeah.
And I actually think we need to do a couple more of these things where get some models, some dioramas, and paint them in with markers, because a lot of people just don't want to have the mess of having paints and then cleaning brushes and all that stuff.
Exactly.
And maybe
And
markers are simple.
markers are very simple. The one thing I would suggest if you are going to try to do markers is the small, really, really tiny details
Mm-hmm.
um, are a little bit more difficult to get into, like little areas such as up under here
Mm-hmm.
are difficult to get into, even with this fine tip marker. So
Yeah.
you'll have to have a fine tip pen as a brush as well.
Yeah,
Just
like a Pigma. Those I don't know if you guys have it in the US, but when I was doing industrial design, you had these 0.8 and 0.5 and 0.2
yeah.
markers with
Oh
a
yeah,
very
like the fine tips. Yeah.
yeah, maybe that helps. But yeah, like Shane is saying, it's much more control and much less mess, I guess.
Yeah.
I think we need to start doing a series on how to paint 3D models with the marker. Oh, that will blow people away.
Yeah. If you do get into that type of series, like I said, talk to Geeky Faye.
Hmm.
She does do some marker work on her prints. So
Yeah, I'll ping her actually tomorrow. As I said to you, I'm trying to get a little bit more painting content into
yeah.
my Discord, because the whole reason why I started doing dioramas is because it's really dioramas are hard. There's a lot of people that do them, but they need to have foam and cut and paint and glue and use to cover the seams and all that stuff.
Hmm.
3D printing dioramas, it's much simpler.
Yeah.
You just print them, glue them together, and then paint them. There's very little to do besides gluing them and paint them.
Right.
But if you think about the next step, is how can you actually make these things easy to paint? And that might be the next step. So I want to start showing off some more tips and tricks about how to paint dioramas and how to paint models and how to
Right.
get started with it. So maybe that's something interesting for us to try and do a couple of times.
Yeah, sure.
Some models and paint them with markers.
I would not mind that at all.
Maybe we'll get a geeky fight also joining a stream, and we all paint a model.
Sure.
I'll just paint a ping pong ball because it's just simple to paint, and you guys can paint the difficult stuff.
That's cheating, Fred.
I'll just airbrush it in yellow and then just paint the eyes and say, "There, that's my Pac-Man done." That works fine. And I have a couple of Sharpies around, so I can actually do that. I did actually get, for those that actually don't have or don't want to get into a lot of markers, I did get Sharpies in metallic colors
Mm-hmm.
for the edge highlighting on some of my models.
And
It works okay.
you can get Sharpies in basic colors too.
Yeah, I did look at it for my daughter. The thing is, for me, when I looked at it, was like I was doing a couple of weapons for cosplay.
Mm.
Like I was doing a Batman grapnel gun, and it's really like you can do edge detailing with just the not the tip of the brush, but with the side of the brush, just
Mm-hmm.
rubbing it. But
Yeah.
again, like Shane was saying, the control, is really hard. So you use drawing with a pen or writing it, and you just get the pen on that edge, and it just looks perfect.
Yeah.
That's why I got those Sharpies, and they work well. So I guess that's an option. I will have to do some investigation about
Sure.
what I can get here in the UK quickly to try.
Yeah, I don't know if the U-Buy are available up there, but they have these ones and they have water-based markers. I would not suggest using a water-based marker.
No.
If you're going to use a marker, use an alcohol-based because it'll evaporate quickly.
Yeah.
And just leave the pigment there for you.
I was trying to find here in the UK. There's the ones I bought for my daughter called Alice, a wrestle or something like that.
Aristotle?
No, a wrestle. But I can't find the ones you've been using on the UK version. But I might have to try and search on the US version.
Yeah, because it is a US company, so.
I might actually maybe try and reach out to them, see if they have a European distributor.
European, yeah. Yeah, it's a fairly new US company. They provide school supplies, actually. And the really cool thing about the company is that when anybody buys a set of pencils or a set of pens or anything else like that, they provide a set for a less fortunate individual for school.
Oh, okay, that's really cool. Well, maybe I'll just have to order them from the US. Now that the UK is not part of the European Union, we might not get taxed.
Oh.
God knows. Trying to find. So I found Copic, but
of course you found Copic.
Yeah. And then I looked.
What did you type in? Most expensive markers available?
Yeah. A pack of 36 had the price, and them that were quite scary. Markers. Come on.
All right. So
trying to find them.
These are the UB or UBI that I reviewed a little while ago, Raven. I will leave a link for them in the chat, but it's one of the first videos that I did on this new channel. So it should be back in October.
I can't find them, but I will look on the Amazon.com website, and I'll probably order some just to try it out.
Yeah.
Now I'm being shamed by your painting skills.
You are not.
I'm going to throw my WIMP away.
You better not. You do anything with that WIMP, it'd be sending it to me.
Yeah. I actually was thinking the other day, how can I ship dioramas to the US without breaking them on the way there? It's really hard.
Just wrap them really well.
The problem is that some of the parts will shake during transport, so they need to be kind of better secured on the inside. So I'm not sure how that would work.
Crazy glue?
I don't know. I was thinking about kind of, those there's these foams that expand, but the problem with those expandable foams is that you can't take them apart. It will be a problem to take them
and
out.
if you like these little tiny parts would just
exactly
be horrible.
So I haven't found a solution to ship these guys to the US.
So I have his head done. I've still got a little bit more to do on his eyes.
Yeah.
But this is what he's going to look like when he's all done.
That looks so cool. I love it.
I've still got at least another coat on his eyes, but that's the coloring that I've given him with just these 4 pens.
That's insane.
And of course with the dry rub, the rub and buff that Bob put on it.
So we still have to give credit to Bob because he put a
Absolutely.
lot of effort in the rub and buff.
He did, actually. He even
I
found
know.
a tool that works really well on it and everything.
He was complaining his arms were hurting of so much rub and buff.
And just so everybody knows, for those people that have just joined us since after I started doing the stream, the rub and buff is a tube of pigment, sort of like a paint, that you just rub on, rub off. And it's got some wax in it that makes it adhere, I guess. But it's a wax metallic finish. It's really kind of cool. And this is what it looks like before you paint it. And this is what it looks like when you just put it straight on.
And rub and buff, there's a lot of different colors you can use, and it's a really cool technique.
Oh, he's got more colors. Woohoo! So there's all sorts of colors here.
Yeah.
So there's a silver one.
Spanish silver, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's silver leaf, gold leaf, and antique gold.
Yeah. And you have also the copper one, and Spanish old silver and black. There's tons of them, and they're really cool. It's again one of the examples of things you can use that are really good.
Yeah, I guess these are the 4 that he bought to get the metallic black. So really cool.
It is. You can do some really good effects with rub and buff. I was trying to find. I've done a couple of models. Oh, I've actually. No. I have a couple of examples. I might send you some photos at another time.
Oh, that'd be cool, and I'll post them in our Facebook page so that the girls that are here can see.
Yeah.
The purpose of rub and buff, Raven, is to put color as well as shine on a piece. And if you don't want to paint the entire thing, you can use a rub and buff to cover the plastic, and it goes on a little bit easier than painting it.
I would. One of the good ideas you can think of is, for example, if you have a model that has a lot of recesses and crevices and details, with the rub and buff, because you're applying it as a slight coat on top, what you're doing is you're covering the high edges with that color and leaving the recesses with the base color.
Right.
And you can do some really good contrasts. Think about like old style stuff where you, for example, you paint it in a teal blue color and cover the whole part, and then you apply a silver just on the edges. The edges. It gives some really good effects on it. A good example is like if you, for example, paint a model in black, completely painted in black, and it has all these details like the Egyptian characters, for example, on the surface, and then you just rub and buff the surface, which means the recesses will be black and the surface will be gold. I can't actually take it. Let me see if I can actually show you this without actually destroying my whole wall.
Do not destroy your wall.
So this is a good example of rub and buff.
Oh, hold on a sec. Let me make you big.
So you see how...
oh, yeah, that's really cool.
All of the gold that was rub and buffed on top of a black primer.
Surface, yeah. That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a simple example of rub and buff. And you can do a similar effect with, again, dry brushing by you doing the opposite, which is light colors as just the hand highlighting. But mostly it's to apply metallic colors.
Yeah.
That use rub and buff.
It's really cool. So I have finished that part, and I will probably finish the other part, but we have reached where I normally call it a night. I've got dinner and stuff like that to make still, and Fred needs to go to bed because he's got to work tomorrow.
Yes, ma'am.
So I am going to call it an evening. I do thank everybody that joined us, and I hope you enjoyed the stream. I know it was a little bit different than our normal stuff that we do here at the Coloring Corner, but that's always what it is about. It's still coloring, it's just not on flat paper. So I figured, what the heck, let's do it.
Yeah.
And I thank Fred so much for joining me. He is a designer and a diorama creator in 3D printing as well as painting, and he knows his stuff. So if you want to click the link, I know I put it in the description. You can get to his Patreon site as well as his website and take a look at his stuff. You know, it's really cool.
There's tons of photos and stuff, and if you have any questions, just hit me up on Twitter, and I'll be happy to help and give some guidance. That's what, you know, I want people to do more of this stuff. So I'm always happy to help. Yeah.
Absolutely. I thank you all very much for joining us. Of course, remember to relax, color, and stay safe. Bye-bye for now, guys.
Bye.